In the year 895 AD in the land of the North Atlantic, the king of Arundel returns to the land with his army and is welcomed by the people. His son Amleth overwhelmed with joy, and he brings the news to his mother Queen Gudrun and faces her mother's reluctance. However, they appear before the king and welcome him. At the celebration of the king's return, the queen asks about the king's brother Fëanor. After a few moments, Fëanor also appears at the party. The king asks a drink for his brother. Hymir, the king's trusted friend, mocks the queen's offer and is met with a violent reaction from Fëanor, which ends with the king's mediation. Fëanor introduces his son Thor to the audience. After the ceremony in private, the king informs the queen of his deep wound and states that they must prepare Amleth for the kingdom so that the kingdom does not fall into the hands of Fëanor. In this direction, the king and Amleth go to the temple alone and perform a special ceremony with the guidance of the temple monk. They go out of their human nature. Amleth swears to protect the blood of the family and take revenge on his father's murderers. The monk takes the last drop of Amleth's tear that was shed due to weakness. In the blood of his wound, the king embodies the tree of kings for Amleth. In this incarnation, the reign of the king of Arundel has ended and Amleth is the next king. After leaving the temple, the king is attacked, and after suffering many injuries, Fëanor removes his mask and targets his brother. The king admits that the kingdom will not come to Fëanor just by getting his ring, and after this murder, his kingdom will not last. Fëanor murders his brother out of greed for the kingdom. He also intends to kill Amleth. Amleth escapes, and one of his soldiers falsely informs Fëanor of Amleth's death. Amleth returns to the castle. He witnesses the killing of his father's followers and the kidnapping of his mother by Fëanor and decides to run away. While running away, he repeats to himself that one day he will return and avenge his father and set his mother free. Years later, in the land of Ras, Amleth has matured and become powerful, and with a heart as cold as iron, and he keeps revenge alive in him. Amleth and his friends attack Valhalla and take everything they want. Some are killed and enslaved. He meets a blind witch in a corner of the castle. He considers Amleth's destiny to be revenge, which he must cross Oceania and kill his father's murderer in a flaming lake next to a black peak and be killed himself. Amleth's ashes will be the beginning of a woman's kingdom. For this revenge, a special sword is needed which is in the hands of an ancient man. The guidance of the female fox leads him to the cave of the ancient man. The witch disappears. Amleth accidentally knows about the transfer of some slaves to Iceland. He inquires about Fëanor and understands that many years ago Fëanor's territory was occupied by the Harald King of Norway and the Herfancy government was destroyed. After the fall, Fëanor migrates to Iceland. Amleth quickly gets to the boat of slaves transported to Iceland and takes a place in the boat as a slave. He meets a slave named Olga and expresses his motivation for enslavement. In Iceland, Fëanor lives an ordinary life away from the glory of the kingdom, and he lives as the head of the tribe. Amleth and Olga are chosen to be enslaved by Fëanor. Amleth introduces himself as Bjornulfr. In one of the nights, Amleth encounters a female fox, and after following her and he reaches a cave where a witch is waiting for Amleth. The witch shows Hymir's head, tongue cut out and eyes gouged out before being killed by Fëanor. Hymir told witch about Amleth's destiny and was waiting for Amleth to answer his question. The witch calls Hymir. Amleth asks Hymir to show him the sword that the Norns have prepared for him. Hymir describes the sword as follows: a sword of the purest steel that neither slows down nor bends, and is made of bone and weighs like straw in its owner's hand, and its blade is thirsty for human blood and is unmatched on the battlefield, and its name is Draggr. The witch explains the function of the sword in the darkness of the night or the darkness of the gates of hell, and considers the hiding place to be the hands of Draegr's owner. The hill dweller in Amleth must go to the hiding place on the night of the full moon. Amleth finds a hiding place in the heart of a mountain and enters with the help of a rope given by the sorcerer. He sees an ancient man holding a Draggr. The ancient man prevents him from taking the sword. During a battle with the ancient man under the light of the full moon, the ancient man is defeated and obtains the Amleth Draggr. After that, Amleth hides the sword somewhere until it's time to take revenge on Fëanor. During this time, Amleth suspects that his mother is in pain and suffers this hardship to save the life of her son, Gunnar, the common child of the queen and Fëanor. The day of the match comes, in which two teams of 4 people from 2 tribes face each other and chase a ball. For this match, Thor, son of Fëanor, chooses Amleth as the last. All of the Fëanor are wounded, except Amleth. Gunnar, excited by the possible defeat of the team, he enters the game and is attacked by the attacker of the opposing team. Amleth rescues Gunnar and kills the attacker. Thor commends Amleth for his bravery and loyalty. After that, Amleth kills and slaughters 2 of Thor's friends and nails them on the wall. Thor thinks that the murder was done by Christians because they have been crucified like Christ. But the nun believes that the murder was committed by a wandering spirit with a hungry sword. For this reason, he prepares himself for the sacrifice ceremony for Freyr, one of the gods, to end the bloodlust. One of the black-haired slave girls is being prepared for sacrifice. Amleth goes out of his human nature and the howler makes the dogs restless. In the created chaos, he goes to the temple and frees the girl, and the monk of the temple is slaughtered and the monk is tied with a rope. The next night, all the slaves are used to defend the farm. Suddenly, many guards are possessed by ghosts and hurt themselves. Amleth takes advantage of the situation and goes to his mother's room. Amleth introduces himself and says that he has come to avenge and save him. But in complete disbelief, Mother does not welcome Amleth and say, Amleth, like his father, an ignorant and cowardly man, knows. He says that Amleth is the result of Arundel's brutality, and on the other hand Gunnar is the result of his love and affection for Fëanor. The queen admits that she ordered Arundel's murder herself. He also threatens Amleth not to harm Thorir, Gunnar, and Fëanor. Amleth angrily leaves his mother and goes to Thorir and kills Thorir in his sleep. After that he informs Olga of his plan. He must escape before dawn and Olga will join Amleth later. The next morning Fëanor was angry and affected by Thorir's death, moans and screams at his son's ceremony while his wife asks him to be strong, and the main murderer, who happens to be her son, will find him and kill him. Fire of revenge, he captures Fëanor and kills several slaves to find Amleth as accomplice. He reaches Olga and puts a sword to her throat. Amleth reveals himself to save Olga. Olga escapes and Amleth is imprisoned. The king of Arundel appears in the body of a crow and with his friends he helps the child in his bond. During the ceremony of Thorir, Fëanor is filled with the motive of revenge and murder and rushes towards his prisoner, but he does not find Amleth. Amleth opens his eyes and finds himself in another place next to Olga. Perhaps Olga is one of Odin's, ruler of the gods, female valkyries, warriors, and saved Amleth. Amleth finds himself in the love of Olga and decides to run away with Olga and start a peaceful life with her and get rid of the feeling of hatred and revenge. Together with Olga, they board the ship and leave for Orkney. Suddenly, in the wound caused by Fëanor's sword on Olga's neck, he sees the Tree of Kings with two sons of Olga who are of the same blood and are in the highest branches. It reminds me of the words of the witch in Iceland who said, "It is a difficult choice between kindness and mercy to loved ones and revenge on enemies." He changes his mind. Despite the fact of Fëanor, there is no future for his sons. He asks Olga to prepare their children for the kingdom and returns to Iceland. In the darkness of the night, Shabikon kills the guards of the farm one by one, searches the rooms for Fëanor. In the meantime, her mother attacks her from behind and Amleth inevitably lands the dagger in her mother's heart. Gunnar also attacks and falls to support his mother. Fëanor comes across the corpse of his wife and child and decides to fight Amleth next to the gates of hell. Amleth reaches the lake of fire by the Black Peak and at the gates of hell. Fëanor attacks from behind and the fight begins. In the fight, Amleth falls to the ground and is on the verge of defeat. Suddenly, Amleth gets up and continues to fight, and in a simultaneous blow, the dagger separates the head from Fëanor's body and Fëanor's sword cuts Amleth's heart. Amleth leaves the world happy with the achievement of the goal and with the thought of a bright future for Olga and her children.